Well, hello, my gorgeous humans. I am so excited to have you back and be back in your ears. Welcome to another episode of Your Power. For those who are watching the visual version on YouTube, you may notice a new background. The audio might be a little bit different as well, but hopefully I now have a beautiful, consistent space to record the podcast, because that has been very much an issue since I moved to New South Wales, because I live with people now who work lots of different shifts and go to school, and everyone's been on holidays, and there's not really an aesthetically pleasing place for me to sit without being interrupted by either one of 4 people or one of 4 dogs. So last week I came up with a bit of a solution. Kelsey and Heidi and I, if you don't know Kelsey and Heidi yet, they are my childhood best friends from my hometown, and we have decided to start this new tradition of Tuesday night dinners. So we did Tuesday night dinner last week. Heidi is away, Kelsey is here, but we did Tuesday night dinner. And I just had an epiphany moment of the fact that everyone in this house works full time. I'm gonna be here on a Tuesday anyway. I may as well come early, sneak into their house, record the podcast in a beautiful new background. I am going to have to add some photos of myself on that wall that you can see in the background of the video. But other than that, it is perfect. It's a perfect setup. So here I am, new podcast space, new podcast setup. I don't know if you saw my story that I posted the other day, but I walked in today and I let myself in, came over. Where I'm sitting right now is like the dining room, technically. So the kitchen is right there. It's a very big, open dining, living kitchen. And I walked in, and on the board on the fridge, it says, "Welcome to Your Power Podcast Studio." So I loved that. I am very, very grateful for my friends for letting me use their house and use their space. And hopefully this gives me no more excuses to not record because I don't have a aesthetic background or I don't have a consistent space. I am here on a Tuesday, ready to go. Now, other than the kind of inconsistency of the space that I have and me pretty much just using that as an excuse, I did take a couple of weeks off. One of the weeks I took off was for my pop's funeral. Unfortunately, my pop did pass away a couple of weeks ago. He was unwell for a while, but of course that doesn't make it any easier. So I spent one of those weeks farewelling my pop, just being with family and being present on the day of the funeral. And then kind of the weekend before that, I was actually in Melbourne, and it was kind of like the accumulation of those two things, being in Melbourne, and if you listen to the last podcast episode, you would know exactly why that was so triggering for me. And that was my first time back in Melbourne since I moved. And then coming home and having the funeral, and at the funeral I was surrounded and with people or a person in particular that dysregulates the fuck out of me, to just be perfectly honest about it. And it was a really shitty day and a really shitty situation, and it was a lot for me, having Melbourne and having the funeral and having that situation. I think I posted a photo on Instagram of like my Whoop stats from the day of the funeral, and whilst the funeral in itself is a very dysregulating situation, a particular situation was happening kind of behind the scenes, and that was a lot for me. And the Whoop stats, the stats of my body, were literally like very similarly looking as if I was to be exercising for 8.5 hours straight that day. Like, my stress levels were so high, my heart rate was elevated, everything was just like screaming nervous system dysregulation. So I actually needed to take a few days off after that funeral just because I was so exhausted. My body was so exhausted. And I think that was just such a key learning for me, and a key tick in the box of everything that I have been teaching and everything that I've been working on with my clients, in this concept around your nervous system, right? And your nervous system is the key to how you live your life and how you run your days and how you run your business. And I think this was a really good teaching for me, both as a reminder to myself, and I sent it to all of my clients and kind of really gave them the stats to see what I mean by this. But I think people can be so caught up in conversations from coaches in particular, and conversations on social media about the need for consistency and the need to continue showing up and the need to be giving it your all regardless of what's going on behind the scenes, and this idea is like consistency over nothing, right? And that's what builds business. Whereas for me, I'm very much about prioritizing your nervous system and the consistency of your nervous system prioritization, rather than the consistency of showing up every day in your business and giving it your all. And the reason that I am so passionate about this topic of conversation is because I used to be the showing up girl. I used to be the I'm a CEO and I show up regardless of what's going on in my life girl. And that ran me into the ground, because the way you build a business, the way you build a life, the way you build big long-term results is in the consistency of your small behaviors. It's in the understanding of your nervous system. There is absolutely no chance you are going to build something that is long-term, that is this long-term successful thing, whatever it may be, if you are running yourself as a human into the ground. And so what I actually did after this, it was, the first time in a long time that I have been dysregulated. Why did I say it like that? It's the first time in a long time that I have been that dysregulated. And a massive realization for me was that that's how I used to always feel. And not only was that how I used to always feel, but when I felt that way, I would keep pushing. I would literally keep pushing, even if I was mentally exhausted, even if I could not focus on anything and my body was trying to scream at me to slow down. I would keep pushing, because we can look at it in the situation of like, if someone ran a marathon, they wouldn't be expected to go into the gym the next day and do a workout, would they? No. But when we are dysregulated in situations like that, our body is experiencing the same amount of exertion. Exertion? I think I combined exertion and exhaustion then, but there we go, there's a new word. When our body is that dysregulated, we are eating away at the same amount of energy. The stats on my Whoop literally showed me how highly stressed and how much strain on my body there was that day from that one day of massive dysregulation. And it's like people just, without knowing what that does to your body, without understanding your nervous system and seeing the stats right there, you kind of just push forward. Like, you didn't do anything physically exhausting. You didn't do anything that was like front and center, like, oh, this was a lot. Without knowing the cues of your nervous system, without knowing to prioritize the recovery and restoration of your nervous system, people just keep pushing on. And we need to start normalizing that, just like you wouldn't expect a marathon runner who just ran a marathon to go and do a leg session in the gym the following day, we actually need to have that same normalization around someone who has spent a day with such a heightened nervous system, or who is experiencing dysregulation in their nervous system in some way, shape or form, allowing them the same love and attention towards their restoration and recovery. That's the normalization that we need. That is the conversation that we need to have. That is the focus that we need to normalize to have long-term businesses, to have long-term happy lives, to have long-term relationships, whatever it may be. Prioritizing what your nervous system is trying to tell you and implementing the things to regulate and restore and recover that nervous system. So what that looked like for me was taking a step back, prioritizing the restoration of my nervous system. So literally the next day after the funeral, I jumped on and I messaged my clients, my private clients, and I said, hey, here are my stats from yesterday. this is what I'm doing today to prioritize my nervous system. If I get on and I keep pushing through and I jump in and I listen to the things that you are asking me and the questions that you have as your coach, that is fucking irresponsible. That is me jumping on and answering you from a dysregulated place, and that is a disservice to you. So instead, I shut down my phone, I turned off my notifications, I read a book, I slept, I ate good food, I sat and I allowed my body to calm down. I think I did a breathwork session. Like, I did all of the things that I know regulates my body, and it took 2 or 3 days for me to get back to that place. And then the following week, what I did was, again, prioritize the things in my business when I came back into, the funeral was on a Wednesday, so I kind of took Thursday, Friday as like, I'll do what I need to do, but my priority is the restoration of my nervous system. So when I came back on Monday, I made sure that I took a step back and I looked at my business and I said, okay, what is going to move the needle directly in my business right now? What are the things I then do from overflow? So things like the vlog, things like TikTok posting. You'll see on my monthly vlog, there is a massive break in the vlog because the vlog is something I do from overflow. And if I was to come back on that Monday and go, okay, I need to do the vlog, I need to get on TikTok, I need to check all of my emails, I need to record a podcast, I need to do all of these things that I do from a place of overflow, then I'm only putting more pressure on my nervous system, I'm only putting more stress on myself, and I'm completely reversing everything that I've just done on my nervous system. So I have learnt the importance of prioritization. I have learnt the importance of running my business from my nervous system, from the needs of my nervous system. And what happened? This week, I have come back fucking firing. I have had my biggest week in business in a long time. I launched and created a brand new offer in my head because I just had that creative capacity again. I have had the most in-depth, powerful conversations that I have had with my clients in a really long time. I have genuinely felt like I am smashing my days, and I have felt like that for 9 days straight. And that feels fucking awesome. I did 9 workouts last week. My body is recovered. I am restored. And that is how you run a long-term business. That is how you build a long-term successful life, because of the way you prioritize your nervous system, understanding your nervous system, understanding when it needs restoration, understanding what needs regulating, understanding what dysregulates you, and shifting that and rewiring that and looking into that, and everything comes back to your nervous system. So that is a massive tangent on my life update, but that's my life update. I was very, very, very reminded of how important your nervous system and how important the work that I do is. And that was really cool. From that, I created a brand new offer that behind the scenes, spots have already been flying. I literally launched it on Instagram just before I jumped onto the podcast to record this. And it's probably my favorite offer that I have done in a really long time. I will put the link in the show notes. Is that what they're called? Anyway, this offer is something that I sat with after this period of my life, of a week or whatever it was. But these massive realizations and these conversations that I was having, where I was really reminded how important this work is. And the big long-term goal for my business is the normalization of this work. I want people to see how important prioritizing, understanding, and optimizing your brain and your nervous system is. Much like people will pay for a weekly gym membership, much like people will pay for a personal trainer, much like people will pay for a meal plan, for whatever results they want to get from that, I want to normalize and make this work as accessible as that. As accessible as having a personal trainer, as accessible as having a gym membership. I created a membership platform where there are 3 key components to it. The first one is having a trainer, having a one-on-one person there, aka me, to build you a program for your brain and your nervous system, to audit your current habits and things that you do and things that you can integrate and tools that you can put into your life, just like you would take a gym program to the gym and implement the exercises. Getting a program for your brain and your nervous system that are going to heal and strengthen and optimize your brain and your nervous system. The second key pillar of this membership portal is education. So it is access to all of my courses. It is access to the science. It is me jumping on and giving riffs and teachings and talking to people about the behind the scenes and the reason as to why we are doing these things on a day-to-day for your brain and your nervous system. And then the third pillar is community. Because how fucking powerful is it surrounding yourself with people who are also doing this work, who are also learning about their brain and their nervous system, who are asking questions, who are learning all of these things about themselves and can get all of this in-depth information. It's like these three core pillars are the things that I have learnt hold the power of this work. I have seen it with my clients. I have seen it on my retreats. I have seen it on everything that I have done in the last 6 months with this work. And that is why I created this membership portal. And the main thing, the key thing for me to do this was to make it as accessible as a gym membership and a personal trainer. And so it is weekly payments. Foundation memberships are $97 a week, or you can pay monthly, or you can pay all up front, whatever works. The foundation memberships will be increasing when they go to the normal memberships. I think they go to $135 a week. So to give you an idea, for my Pilates membership, my gym membership, and my yoga, I pay $160 a week. This is going to be $135. And this has a million different inclusions in it. It is like, it's going to change the world. This is what I want to bring to the world. This is what I want to bring to the world, is normalizing this work just as much as you would normalize your physical health, your physical appearance, the food that you eat, all of the things, because in my opinion, this work is much more important than that. And that is a flow-on effect of this work and focusing on this work. Anyway, that's just my opinion. But that's exciting. I launched that. So yeah, I'll put that in the show notes so you can have a look at it. Okay, so let's get into the content of the episode. Now, this podcast episode topic idea came from, I've been doing a lot of nervous system audits lately. So basically what I do is someone will buy an audit from me, they get a questionnaire, basically just around their current routine. I have a bit of a test on there to kind of have a look at the baseline dysregulation levels and look at all the symptoms of your nervous system and understand, where you're sitting in terms of baseline dysregulation. I take a look at the things that you do within your day, the things that you do overnight time, the way that you sleep, the way that you breathe, all of these things, and I audit nervous systems. And then what I do from that audit is I hand back an action plan. And what I have been doing with these audits is I have found that there are some really, really key things that I am recommending to a lot of people whose audits I do because of the profound effect that they have had on my life. And I have found that there are 5 behaviours in particular that I have now normalized as part of my everyday. I find myself including in a lot of nervous system audits for people who, most people don't do these things or do things that need to be changed. You'll understand when I talk about it. And I've also been finding that these are the things that I talk about and my go-to when I talk to friends and family, right? One of my friends was talking to me the other day about how she's not sleeping very well, and I would recommend these particular things. So I thought I would give you a little bit of an episode around 5 behaviours that changed my life. They obviously have a nervous system focus, and they're 5 things that you can go and implement regardless of the state of your current nervous system, and they're going to help you. So here we go. The first thing, and so many people are going to hate me for this, and so many people are probably going to listen to this first one and then turn off the podcast episode, because this is one that I have found a lot of people and most people have resistance to. Now, obviously, goes without saying, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm nothing to do with food. I have no food training whatsoever. And I am not a doctor or a medical professional. So all of these things that I'm saying, please incorporate into your own health and consult with your doctor if you need to, and all of the things. This isn't in replacement for any medical advice. However, this is from my experience. This is from what I know around the nervous system and the way that the body functions. So the first, by far, the most profound thing that I have done or stopped doing, to be more specific, is eating gluten. I'm sorry, I know. I know, I can feel all of you going, absolutely not, that's not happening. Trust me, that was me as well. That was absolutely me as well, and it is most people that I talk to. However, let me tell you something. I want to take you back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors. And I want you to think about the foods that they ate. Now, I'm sure you've heard me say this somewhere before, but when I talk about the nervous system, I bring this conversation back quite frequently. And the conversation is, when we are trying to figure out the things that we should do and shouldn't do for our nervous system, go back to evolution. Understand what our body is used to and what our body is trained to do, how our body is trained to behave, by going back into evolution. Because at a cellular level, that is what our body is used to. That is what our body is primed to do. Now, our hunter-gatherer ancestors were going out and they were hunting food. They were hunting meat. They were hunting plant and vegetable. And I don't know why I'm speaking like a caveman all of a sudden. Plant and vegetable. They were not eating pasta. They were not eating bread. They were not eating, not just gluten, they weren't eating anything that was man-made, anything that we know now as man-made, right? Gluten is just one example, but that's kind of been the most profound thing for me, is gluten. But we're talking processed foods, preservatives, artificial colors, artificial flavors, processed sugar, gluten, all of these things our hunter-gatherer ancestors would not have found while they were out hunting. And that is a key indicator that our body is actually not used to processing and digesting these foods. Now, of course, everybody's body is at a different level of their ability to be able to process, hence why we have intolerances, right? Some people's bodies can't handle things that other bodies can. However, the best thing that I have implemented for my body in terms of the food that I eat is going back and asking myself, this thing that I'm about to eat, would my hunter-gatherer ancestors have found it on their morning hunt? The bag of raspberry licorice bullets? Probably not. The spaghetti bolognese? Not the pasta bit, not the spaghetti bit, right? You catch my drift? So to understand the nervous system, and this goes for everything, our behaviours, you know, what we do, the things that we consume, everything. Go back to your hunter-gatherer ancestors and ask yourself, is this what my body is actually conditioned to do? When we eat things that our body is not used to or not good at processing, all of the energy in our nervous system actually goes towards trying to process that thing. Our body has to work harder to be able to process the thing that is quote unquote foreign to it. And therefore, all of our resources are being taken up by the processing of that thing, and they're being taken away from our body's natural functioning, from the regulation of our heart rate, from the regulation of our body temperature, from the regulation of our breath, all of the things that our nervous system is responsible for looking after in the background. The energy is taken away from those things, and our body has to work harder to process the thing that is not really used to processing. And so all of the rest of our nervous system suffers because of that. So when your body is working hard to process something, like for me in particular, gluten, I absolutely just cannot have gluten anymore because I can actually feel the difference in my body when I eat it. It's why You know, for me, for example, my skin flares up because my body actually isn't able to digest and process it properly. Therefore, the toxins from what I'm eating and the way that my body is processing isn't happening in the way that it's supposed to. And so instead it's coming out in my skin, right? The stress on my body is showing in my skin. A lot of people as well, like I've had this conversation with my cousins who both have it as well. It's like when a lot of people eat gluten, you get the red bumps on the back of your arm. Again, that's your body's way of telling you it's not processing something properly underneath the surface. And so our natural functions of our body suffer. So, number one, not eating gluten, but let's expand that to not eating things that our hunter-gatherer ancestors couldn't have found. Now, that is not to say that I don't have a cheeky raspberry bullet every now and then, or a Macca's sundae, which I had 2 nights ago, and my body told me that that was not a good idea, that's for sure. That is not to say that I don't have the cheeky treat every now and then. You know, sometimes there will be a baked good that I absolutely must have in my body. I love a baked good. That is the hardest thing that I've had to give up in terms of my gluten giving up. But in general, if you are constantly eating things that your body doesn't like and that your body is not used to processing, then it is constantly working in overdrive, and therefore it will constantly be dysregulated. It will constantly be working and consuming energy towards these things that you're doing that is not good for your body, instead of focusing on your body's normal automatic physiological functions, and then our body becomes dysregulated because those functions aren't happening the way that they should. It should be just a more often than not thing, if anything. Number 2, another one that I find myself recommending to anyone that will listen is getting morning sunlight. So you wake up in the morning. A lot of people I speak to have transitioned into waking up, you know, going to bed with their blinds open and waking up in the sun, with the sun, sorry. This is a good start. However, when you go outside in the morning, when you get sun directly on your eyeballs, your visual receptors receive that light, things happen in your body. What happens is your cortisol begins to rise naturally. Healthy cortisol levels begin to happen. This is what we want. This is what tells our body that it's time to be awake and alert, and it's daytime, right? The next thing that happens is that our melatonin levels start to come down. So our body starts to suppress melatonin levels, which is our sleepy hormone, which means that, again, our body is priming to be awake and alert. What is also happening here is something called our circadian rhythm is essentially aligning to the day-night cycle, which is what we want. When you go out in the morning sunlight, it's like a timer starts in your body, right? You get morning sunlight on your eyes, your body goes, okay, it's daytime, therefore time to be awake and alert. It will then set a timer for the opposite end of the day where it's going to start bringing up those melatonin levels for you to go back to sleep, for you to get a better night's sleep, a higher quality night's sleep, because your body knows it's time to be asleep. So this one tiny thing that you can do in the morning, going out and getting morning sunlight in your eyeballs, actually affects so much in your entire day's process. It not only allows you to wake up and be alert and allow your natural chemicals in your body to function as they should throughout the day and be triggered as they should throughout the day, it's also going to mean you get a fucking good night's sleep as well, which is really important. When you get a good night's sleep, your body is restoring properly, your body is recovering properly. All of these things are happening in your nervous system, meaning that our nervous system processes and the way that our nervous system is working, it is working efficiently, and therefore it is working in a regulated state. Number 3, this one is also one where people don't like it. Well, that's too damn bad. Okay, so the next one is putting your phone in another room to charge overnight. I hope you cannot see how sweaty I am on camera, because fuck me, I am hot. the air conditioner is in like the living room side of this room and I am sweating my balls off. Anyway, putting your phone in a different room to charge overnight. And this has a absolute beautiful ripple effect. What this means is not only are you not laying in bed and scrolling on your phone before you go to sleep, it also means that your phone is not going to be the first thing that you check when you wake up. Double-edged sword, killing two birds with one stone, however you want to put it, it's a fucking good habit. Now, the reason you don't want to be scrolling your phone before bed and opening it as soon as you wake up, I mean, apart from the obvious common sense reasons, let me give you the science. When you are scrolling your phone before you are falling asleep, your body is trying to release melatonin levels. It is trying to get you to go to sleep. It is trying to have all of these chemical releases happening so that you can start to restore your body, right? So you can start to go to sleep and hit your restorative processes. However, when you're scrolling your phone before bed, a couple of different things are happening. One, you're getting light in your eyes, which means that melatonin production is not going to happen as it should because the light, your brain still thinks it's daytime. Any light coming in is going to keep the brain alert. Not only is the light itself going to keep your brain alert, but whatever you're looking at on your phone is going to keep your brain alert as well. Regardless of the doom scrolling that you're doing, regardless of how much attention that you're paying to your phone, all of these different stimulating things are happening to your body. The sounds, the video, the colors, the whatever, all of these things are being thrown at your brain to process. And so therefore your brain is going to keep throwing out cortisol levels and all of your chemicals that are telling you to stay awake, be alert. This is what we're supposed to do, is watch these things, right? So you're going to affect your natural chemical production in the way of needing to fall asleep, right? Ideally, we want melatonin production to happen before we go to bed. That's what ideally does happen, right? We want the melatonin production to start happening to actually make us sleepy. So then by the time we fall asleep, we can actually fall into a quality sleep. But if you're scrolling and then you put your phone down and then you go to sleep, it's going to take your body a while to actually produce the chemicals and get into the sleep stages that it needs to get into for those restorative processes. So you're actually affecting your entire night's sleep by having the doom scroll happening. Then on the opposite end of that sleep, in the morning when you wake up, you are waking up, right? And your body is just coming from this beautiful, relaxed state, and you're being waken up to an alarm or something that wakes you up, right? Unless you're someone who has the beauty of waking up naturally, which is amazing, and I'm very jealous. But let's think about your body for a second. You are in this beautiful sleep. You might be dreaming. It's comfy, it's cozy, it's beautiful, it's restorative, it's quiet, it's relaxing. All of a sudden you're woken up. That's fucking stressful for your body, right? So when we're woken up, our body naturally surges cortisol, which is our stress hormone, right? Again, absolutely fine. It's normal, it's natural, it's telling our body to be awake. Great. However, it takes about 90 minutes for those cortisol levels to come back to balance. So when you have the natural cortisol surge when you wake up, and then you check your phone and you check your emails and you're telling your body to be even more alert and more alert and more alert, and you're looking at all of the things that are surging your cortisol levels, then you're depleting yourself of this cortisol. You're running on this high for the entirety of the morning because you're just smashing yourself with cortisol, essentially, and then you crash in the afternoon. You'll crash because you've surged this cortisol, you have flooded your body with stress, you have put a significant strain on your body, and not only are you then going to live out your day running on this high, on this dysregulation, but then you're likely going to fucking crash at about 3 p.m, which is a common thing that we feel, right? It's a common thing for the human race, is to have the 3 p.m. crash. Because we are smashing ourselves, we are smashing our bodies first thing in the morning with things that are stressing it out. So When you leave your phone in a different room, I don't want that to be, okay, then you get up out of bed and then you go check it. It's like, this is where you start to condition yourself to have a morning routine for yourself before you give your energy to your phone, before you smash your body with unnecessary stress. Again, you might just be scrolling TikTok, you might not be checking emails, you might just be scrolling, but your body, all it sees is, we need to be alert, we need to focus, we need to look at this, right? Have time for your body to come back to balance. Allow that natural cortisol surge to come back down. Go and get your morning sunlight. Tell your body it's okay to be awake. Tell your body to be alert and awake, and ride that morning wave and give yourself a beautiful morning to allow then that cortisol to come back to balance and all of these hormones and chemicals to keep you going for the rest of the day, to start surging when they need to be released when they need to be suppressed when they need to. Again, our hunter-gatherer ancestors weren't waking up to alarms, probably. I mean, some probably kind of nature alarm maybe, but most likely they were waking up to the sun, and that was the start of their day. And then when the sun went down, that was the end of their day, and that was as simple as that. And their bodies got to sync to that, whereas we are saying fuck you to that, and we are sitting on our phones and we're watching TV and we're doing all of the things that are stopping our body from telling us it's time to go to sleep. And that is not fucking good for our body. Our body does not work like that. It cannot function like that. It can function like that, but not very well. So put your phone in a different room to charge overnight. Try and build up to not only charging it in a different room overnight, but actually build up to not touching it for about 60 to 90 minutes before you go to bed and after you wake up. Trust me, it will absolutely change your day. And long term, it will absolutely change your nervous system. I mean, all of these things will, which is the whole entire topic of this podcast. Anyway, number 4, I have spoken about this many times. I couldn't not include it because of how much I talk about it. Mouth taping. Now, the key to mouth taping is obviously nose breathing, and that is the general thing we want to aim towards. However, nose breathing takes time. It's not a behavior that you can just implement and change and do all of the things. It takes conscious effort, it takes training. I get that. So the thing that you can implement and do straight away is taping your mouth and forcing the nose breath. Specifically, mouth taping at night, mouth taping while you sleep. A lot of people do have the conscious effort and the conscious ability to breathe through their nose throughout the day when you are conscious and you're able to think about it and you're able to control it. However, majority of people will then go to sleep and breathe through their mouth. And trust me when I say, if you think that you breathe through your nose while you're sleeping, 90% of you are wrong. Taping your mouth ensures that you are breathing through your nose. And what breathing through your nose does, it tells your body that it's safe. Therefore, it puts you into a deeper sleep because your body is not on high alert for predators. It can actually sleep. And when it goes into a deeper sleep, it can hit those deep restorative sleep processes. When we hit our deep restorative sleep processes, our body is restored, our body is recovered, and we can wake up the next morning with a fully functioning nervous system and a happy nervous system. When we breathe through our mouth, things happen. I'll tell you what happens. 1, we are triggering a sympathetic response in our nervous system. Our sympathetic response is our fight or flight response. So you're breathing through your mouth, your fight or flight system is being triggered because of the depth in which mouth breathing is, right? Our sympathetic response is being triggered. Our body, even though we might be asleep, it's still on alert. We're in fight or flight mode. It doesn't know what it's on alert from, but it's on alert. It's in fight or flight mode. And so we are never going to be able to hit those deep restorative sleep levels when our body is on alert for danger, because we need to be, if someone breaks into the cave, if a predator comes into the cave, we need to be on alert, right? So breathing through your nose is going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and digest. When that system is activated, we are able to go into restoration. We are able to have restorative processes happening. We are able to rest and digest. We are also stopping ourselves from snoring, aka choking on ourselves. That is what snoring is. It's literally choking. So when you're breathing through your nose, that is when, your mouth, sorry, that is when you snore. When you snore, you can wake yourself up. You are getting a dry mouth. That's going to wake you up as well. All of these things are going to interrupt your sleep. And when we interrupt our sleep, we interrupt our restorative processes. When we interrupt our restorative processes, our body wakes up the next day not fully functioning, dysregulated, all of the things. So mouth taping at night allows us to have a higher quality sleep, allows us to go into restorative processes. Sleep is, as you can see from a lot of the things that I'm talking about, one of the key things that is going to heal your nervous system. If you struggle with the idea of mouth taping, if you struggle with, feeling claustrophobic or feeling like you might die in your sleep or any of those things, I have two things to say to you. One, you are very clever. Your body is very clever. If your body is not able to breathe, if you're suffocating, your body will know how to take a piece of tape off your mouth. Trust me, it's clever. The second thing is try and practice throughout the day. So when you're reading a book, when you're typing, when you're sitting and watching TV, tape your mouth. What that's going to do is it's going to show your body that it's safe. Obviously, this is something that is not normal for the body. And of course, if you are someone who feels like they're going to be suffocating or claustrophobic, that's going to stress your body out. So if you put tape on throughout the day where you can consciously breathe and show your body that it is safe and you're safe and you know that you're going to be awake to rip the tape off if you need to, the more your body will see that it's safe, the more your body will get used to it, the easier it will be to put it on at night and leave it on throughout the night. You might find that the first few nights that you do it, you will take it off in your sleep. That's fine, that's normal, keep pushing through. You may even have some night, like last night I woke up and it was on my arm. So you may even have some nights where you might be a little bit congested or your body may be under a little bit more stress. You will know to take it off, trust me. I still have those nights every now and then. Last night was one of them. Like I said, your body will get used to it, just keep persisting. I will actually link the tape that I use in the show notes. I have tried quite a few and this one works the best. So I will pop that in the show notes for you. And then my fifth and final behavior that has changed my life is not eating within the 2 to 3 hour period before bed. Again, related to sleep, right? Now, I can see a difference, and again, I posted this. I think I actually put this in one of my highlights. If you want to go and have a look at my highlights on Instagram, there is a screenshot from my Whoop stats where the other night I was PMSing a little bit. I went and got some Top Deck, and this is something I used to do every night. My guilty pleasure, my, end of my day, every single day was jumping into bed with my book and some rows of Top Deck or whatever chocolate I felt like this week. It was majority Top Deck most of the time. Anyway, I really was craving Top Deck the other night. I was coming into getting my period. I just needed it. So I did that and I woke up the next morning and the stats of my Whoop were so high when I was falling to sleep that night that it affected the rest of my night's sleep. Let me tell you why it does this. Again, going back to talking about the way that our body processes food, right? And this goes to say, this is especially for eating things like chocolate and sugar and processed foods and preservatives and things that are foreign to our body. Eating right before bed, it takes our body time to digest food. It takes our body time to process food. So again, coming back into understanding the way that our body is functioning when it's processing food, it is taking our energy that is usually spent on our, normal regulation processes. It is taking that energy and it is putting it towards processing this food, which is fine when we're awake because that's what our bodies are designed to do. But when we are falling asleep and when we're sleeping, our body's processes need to be focused on our autonomic processes, on our autonomic nervous system, on our heart rate, on our blood pressure, on our breathing rate, on all of the things to be able to be working towards restorative processes and quality sleep and all of the things, right? Our bodies functions need to be prioritized towards those things, because without a regulated heart rate, without a regulated breathing rate, without our body's core temperature working the way that it needs to be, our sleep is affected. And so when we're eating right before bed, that energy is still being used to process foods and digest foods, when in an ideal world, we need that energy and we need those functions happening on our restorative processes, on our body's functioning, on our heart rate and our breathing rate and all of the things. The energy needs to be there to get quality sleep, but it's not there if we're eating close to bedtime. So eating your last meal and having the last thing that you have to eat around 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed means that your body can process the food, your body can digest all of the food, it can do what it needs to do, and then all of our functions and all of our energy comes back to all of our autonomic processes, and that means that we can have it all focused on our sleep. Everything that we are doing is focused on our sleep. Everything that our body is focusing on is to benefit our sleep. And when it does that, we sleep properly, we sleep better, we are restoring our bodies in the way that they're meant to be restored. So, 5 behaviors that changed my life, things that you can do starting today. Avoiding processed foods. I want to say gluten, but all processed foods would be ideal. Stick to foods that your hunter-gatherer ancestors would have found on their mission to find food. Number 2, getting morning sunlight for about 5 to 10 minutes as soon as you wake up. Number 3, putting your phone in a different room to charge overnight. Number 4, mouth taping specifically for sleep, building up to it if you need to. And number 5, eating your last meal 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed and not eating close to bedtime. Those are 5 things that you can start doing today to prioritize your nervous system, to heal your nervous system, to regulate your nervous system. Now, before we go, I have an essay for you from the 101 essays that will change the way you think. Before I read this essay, I just want to say, since bringing back this podcast, I am just in awe of the amount of downloads and the amount of watches on YouTube and all of the new followers. And I really just would love, if you don't already, because there are a lot of downloads and not the same amount of follows, but whatever platform you are listening, watching this on, please jump on, follow, subscribe. I don't want to sound like that person, but that's just kind of what you have to do to build a podcast. So if you could, I would really appreciate it. I absolutely just am loving the feedback on the latest episodes, and it'd be really cool to have more people listen to them. So thank you so much in advance. Anyway, the essay that I am reading to you today from 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna Wiest is essay number 67, Things Your 20s Are Too Short For. I loved this one. Number 1, we're doing lots of list form today. Number 1, letting anybody convince you that because you're young, you're incapable. Plato began his career in politics before he was 20 and has stated that he faced ridicule in his coming of age for that reason. Some of the greatest cultural tycoons of this century were in their 20s when their first huge contributions were made. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, etc., etc. Imagine where we'd be if they listened to the people who said, "What do you know?" Number 2, arguing with people whose intentions are not to understand you, but only to prove themselves right. You do not owe it to anybody to carry on a conversation that is only serving their ego. But you do owe it to yourself to step out of the inevitable frustration and self-doubt of interacting with people who don't listen to understand, but to respond, who don't speak to be heard, but to defend. Number 3, wasting your energy placating the habits of people who don't take the initiative to actually get their shit together. Wow, I didn't realize how relevant this essay would be for me today in particular. Anyway, often the most frustrating thing about dealing with someone who's going through a tough time is that they aren't willing to listen to reason or logic, or even simply your opinion. You end up having to pretend. You nod along with whatever they're saying because you don't want your every interaction to turn into a fight. The resentment will build and the relationship will crumble anyway. Number 4, Justifying your choices to people who only care about how you look within the context of their lives. The people who will squawk the loudest about what you should and shouldn't do, or how you're on the wrong path, or whatever else they couldn't possibly have the grounds to know, are usually the ones most concerned with how it makes them look, or how they're going to explain you to friends or cousins or sisters or family or co-workers. Remember that while you're deciding who matters. And while we're on the topic, number 5, remain in contact with people you don't like because you should, because it's more convenient, because you'll feel guilty if you don't, because you're too afraid of what someone will think if you're finally honest with yourself and other people. You do not have to waste your life bending over backwards to make people happy when they don't and wouldn't do the same for you. Number 6, holding on to love that's already run its course because you fear the best has passed you, or you won't find anybody who makes you feel the same way. The purpose of most great love is to gut you open, teach you what you need to know, and send you on your way to bigger, better, even happier things. Don't let your irrational fears talk you out of letting yourself find that. Feel seen. Anyway, number 7, eating food you don't like, keeping plans you don't want, staying digitally connected to people who annoy you, hoarding clothes for a someday that never comes, and putting your life on hold for someone who does not and will never want to commit. The amount of life we waste gathering and holding onto the things that will never really serve us does one thing and one thing only. It keeps us away from the things that matter, that bring us joy and purpose and meaning for that much longer. Number 8, not taking time to figure out what you want, even if it's to be okay with knowing you're not sure and don't need to be. Don't let the fear of not finding something definitive keep you from finding anything at all. You'll be running around in the circles somebody else drew for you so long as you don't take the time to reflect and evaluate and really connect with that core inner knowing that screams when you come across something you know is what you're meant to do or be or become, even if it's just for a day, an hour, or a year. Number 9, not taking time to heal the wounds of your childhood. The things that have molded you will be constructs that you and only you will have to dismantle for yourself. The time to do this will either be now, while you're still adaptable and developing, or later when your unhealed walls are forcibly knocked down by powers greater than your own self-control. The choice is yours. It always will be. Number 10, judging people for things that seem wrong. Every single thing serves a purpose. The goal is not to create a seamless image, it's to go through the experiences that need to grow and teach us and change us. You don't know that a completely wrong and illogical marriage is what someone really needs. You don't know that there's no element of fate or destiny involved in the birth of a child that seems young and for which the parents seem ill-prepared. You don't know that the people who seem to be doing nothing with their lives are gathering the knowledge and experience that will one day write the great next American novel, uncover the great next philosophic idea. As hard as it may be to grasp, all things are good because all things serve us in the way of growth and development. 11, never taking the initiative to learn how to live within your means, whatever your means might be. It doesn't matter how much or how little money you are making, how many investments you have or savings accounts that are stacked or absolutely empty. It doesn't matter how much or how little debt you still have to pay off. If you are not already in the mindset and lifestyle of living within the means you have, the same financial problems will follow you no matter where you go or what you achieve. Number 12, putting the things you want most off until it's more convenient. If you're looking for a reason not to, you'll always find a reason not to. If you're looking for a way how, you will always find a way how. Number 13, burning bridges over minor frustrations, bridges that could have led to jobs or relationships you didn't know you'd want or need. While you're in this weird period of infinite opportunity and inevitable, uncanny irony and serendipity, you're in no place to assume that you're not going to need every last contact you've got. If you must walk out of something, learn to do so gracefully so the door won't be locked if you need to walk back in. Number 14, staying at a job where you're miserable. I'm not saying it will happen tomorrow. I'm not saying you'll find your dream job in a week or even a month or 3 or 6. I'm saying that anybody who has accomplished anything they've really wanted at a young age had one thing in common. They were at the right place at the right time because they were consistently putting themselves there. To create your own luck, up your chances, and have faith that some greater destined force will do the rest for you, It sounds like a loose argument, but please trust me. Number 15, staying in a relationship which you secretly get the sense that you're settling because there's nobody else around. Similar to how terrible temporary jobs become a terrible 10 years at the same job before you do anything about it, relationships you settle for become marriages you settle for. Number 16, not experimenting with your appearance because you're afraid any one change will define you as a whole. There are two things it would benefit you to do here. And those are to get really goddamn comfortable with the body that you're stuck with and get really goddamn comfortable with that body changing, because it's only going to do so from here on out. Some of that change will be within your control, most of it will not. Don't let yourself be so attached to one way of appearing that you make your inevitable growth and aging even harder for yourself. Number 17, never learning to say sorry or thank you, not for the sake of how it will make you look, but because you are able to recognize the ways in which you could have done better and the things for which you are humbled. To your parents, to your exes, to your teachers, to strangers, friends, family, the people you once knew, but most importantly, to yourself. Number 18, not ordering pizza at 4 a.m. or eating cake for breakfast at least once, or kissing a stranger, or giving the person you've been eyeing across the bar or cafe your phone number, or taking a road trip and sleeping in the car with your best friend, or whatever other slightly irresponsible but ultimately harmless thing you're tempted to do, but most times don't have the guts to. Just do it. Number 19, waiting for something outside to fix your inside. For the next year, job, relationship, paycheck, piece of clothing, new apartment to fix whatever discomfort or dissatisfaction you feel, the latter will follow you into the former until you fix it on its own terms always. Number 20, only wanting happiness. There is so much more in life than just feeling content all the time. The most important things that you'll experience will have little to do with your happiness. They'll be about suffering and heartbreak and joy and panic and fear and love and what you come out as having been through those things. You will not remember the days when you were just okay and happy. You will remember the moments of joy and the pangs of ache and the things that were defining and changing and miraculous and incredible and made you feel alive. Stop numbing your life because you're afraid of yourself. The only beast there is to tame is the one who doesn't want to really live. That is all for the episode today. I hope you loved it as always. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and I will talk to you next week. Love you, bye.